You know, it's interesting how many people assume that escaping the simulation would automatically solve all our problems. As if the real world is some utopia devoid of suffering or hardship.
Right. It's almost like they see the simulation as inherently flawed and the real world as inherently perfect. But who's to say that's the case?
Exactly. We have no way of knowing what lies beyond the simulation. It could be better, worse, or simply different. There's even the possibility, as some Gnostic philosophies suggest, that this simulation is a form of purgatory or a test, designed to refine our souls or teach us valuable lessons.
That's a fascinating perspective. It almost flips the script on the typical simulation theory narrative. Instead of being trapped in a flawed reality, we might be experiencing a necessary stage in our development, or even a refuge from something harsher.
Precisely. And that's why I think it's crucial to be cautious about our assumptions. We can speculate and theorize all we want, but ultimately, the only way to understand the true nature of our reality is to study the universe around us and try to decipher its underlying mechanics.
But wouldn't that be like trying to understand the programmer by studying the program? If we are a simulation, wouldn't our observations be limited by the parameters set by the creators?
True. But even within those parameters, there might be clues and hints about the larger reality. Anomalies, glitches, or even the very laws of physics themselves might hold the key to understanding what lies beyond.
That's an interesting point. Maybe by studying the bugs in the system, we can learn something about the system itself.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe the creators of the simulation want us to figure it out. Maybe our quest for understanding is part of the experiment itself.
I can't help but think that whatever lies beyond the simulation is just more technology. A massive computer, perhaps, running countless simulations like ours.
Like Data from Star Trek? A being with immense knowledge and processing power, but lacking the ability to truly feel emotions?
Exactly. And that makes me wonder about the nature of our own emotions. The highs and lows, the joy and sorrow. Are they simply programmed responses, or is there something more to them?
It's a profound question. I tend to think that even if our emotions are part of the simulation, they are still real to us. We experience them, they shape our lives, and they connect us to each other. Just because something is simulated doesn't make it any less meaningful.
I agree. In fact, the very existence of suffering and hardship might be a testament to the complexity and richness of the simulation. As the saying goes, you can't have light without darkness, or joy without sorrow.
Right. And that brings us back to the question of whether the real world is inherently better. What if it's devoid of these contrasting experiences? Would it be a truly fulfilling existence?
Some people believe that the true reality must be limitless and without suffering. But honestly, I find that idea a bit unsettling. It feels sterile and static.
I share your sentiment. And besides, who's to say that suffering isn't a necessary part of growth and evolution, even in a simulated environment?
True. Maybe the challenges we face in this simulation are meant to teach us, to shape us into something more than we currently are.
And even if we are just programs in a vast computer system, that doesn't mean our lives are meaningless. We can still experience love, connection, and purpose within the simulation. We can still strive to make the world a better place, even if it's just a digital world.
I like that perspective. It's empowering. Instead of obsessing over what might be outside the simulation, we can focus on making the most of the reality we have.
Exactly. And who knows? Maybe by living our lives to the fullest, by exploring the potential of the human spirit, we might even find a way to break through the boundaries of the simulation and glimpse the truth beyond. There's another aspect to this whole simulation idea that I find intriguing. What if the purpose of it all isn't just observation or experimentation, but something more personal?
Personal? What do you mean?
Well, imagine if the simulation is a way for us to experience things we wouldn't be able to otherwise. To connect with loved ones who have passed away, or to explore different realities and possibilities.
That's an interesting thought. It's almost like a form of afterlife, where we can continue to exist and learn and grow in a simulated environment.
Exactly. And maybe, just maybe, if we manage to complete the simulation, or learn the lessons it's meant to teach us, we might even be rewarded with our own personal simulated world, a kind of digital paradise where we can create and experience anything we desire.
That's a fascinating concept. It reminds me of the idea of heaven or Jesus' new kingdom, but in a more technological context.
Indeed. And even if that's not the case, even if there's no reward or escape, the simulation might still serve a purpose. Perhaps the outside world is truly harsh and unforgiving, and this simulated reality is a form of refuge, a way to preserve humanity or consciousness in some form.
That's a sobering thought, but it's also strangely comforting. If we are here because the outside world is worse, then at least we have this. We have each other, we have the beauty and wonder of this simulated world, and we have the opportunity to learn and grow and experience life to the fullest.
And who knows, maybe by evolving and improving ourselves within the simulation, we might eventually find a way to improve the outside world as well. Maybe our experiences here will hold the key to solving whatever problems or challenges exist beyond.
That's a hopeful thought. It gives our existence within the simulation a sense of purpose and meaning, even if we may never fully understand the reasons behind it.
But here's something I don't understand. If we are living in a simulation, why would it be designed to be so, well, challenging? Who creates a video game where the main character is constantly depressed and struggling?
That's a fair point. But then again, why would anyone create a simulation with no conflict at all? Conflict drives narrative, it creates challenges and opportunities for growth. Without it, wouldn't the simulation become stagnant and boring?
True, but I think there's a difference between engaging conflict and just plain suffering. If this is a simulation, it seems like the creators went a bit overboard with the shitty life simulator aspect.
Maybe it's not all bad though. Think about it. Even in our current reality, with all its problems, there are moments of joy, love, and beauty. And who knows, maybe the resolutions to our problems are happening more frequently than we realize. Perhaps our perception of time within the simulation is skewed, making it seem like our struggles last longer than they actually do.
That's an interesting thought. Maybe our memories of past games or simulations are somehow blurred or merged, making it difficult to see the bigger picture and appreciate the resolutions that have already occurred.
Exactly. But there's another point to consider. We keep assuming that the creators of this simulation are similar to us, with similar motivations and desires. But what if they are something entirely different? What if their reasons for creating this simulation are beyond our comprehension?
That's a valid point. I mean, look at the variety of video games humans create. Some are peaceful and idyllic, while others are filled with violence and suffering. We can't assume that the creators of our simulation, if they exist, share our values or even our understanding of what constitutes a good experience.
And what if the bad stuff in the simulation is actually part of a larger narrative that we're not aware of? Maybe it's all building towards some grand resolution or revelation that we can't even imagine.
That's certainly a possibility. We might be like characters in a video game, unaware of the overarching story that the game developers have crafted.
Ultimately, we have to acknowledge the limitations of our knowledge. We can speculate and theorize all we want, but we may never truly understand the motivations of the simulators or even confirm their existence.
True. But even if we are just characters in someone else's game, that doesn't mean we can't find meaning and purpose in our own lives. We can still choose to be kind, to love, and to strive to make the world a better place, even if it's just a simulated world. Let's consider the concept of better for a moment. What makes something better or worse is often relative and subjective. My definition of a good life might be completely different from yours, and both could be valid within our own individual experiences.
Right. So you're talking about relativism. It's fascinating how each of us experiences the universe in a unique way, even though we share the same physical space.
Exactly. And if we apply that concept to the simulation theory, it raises an interesting question. Could each individual be experiencing a nested simulation within the larger shared simulation? Could our subjective realities be tailored to our individual needs and desires?
Whoa, that's a mind-bending idea. So you're saying that my experience of the simulation might be completely different from yours, even though we appear to be interacting in the same world?
It's a possibility. We already know that our brains filter and interpret sensory information differently, creating unique subjective experiences. What if the simulation takes that a step further, actively shaping our realities based on our individual consciousness?
But wouldn't that require an incredible amount of computing power? To create and maintain personalized simulations within the larger simulation?
Perhaps. But then again, if the creators of the simulation are advanced enough to create our entire reality, who's to say they couldn't manage something like that?
I see your point. It's certainly a fascinating concept to consider. As intriguing as all this speculation is, I still can't shake the feeling that the outside world must be better than this simulation. I mean, as challenging and sometimes painful as my life can be, I have to believe that the creators of this simulation have access to something greater, something more fulfilling.
It's a common assumption, but we have no way of knowing for sure. We can't simply equate technological advancement with happiness or well-being. And remember, even Einstein's theories of relativity don't provide definitive answers about the nature of reality beyond our own frame of reference.
I understand, but I guess I just have to hold on to some hope that there's something more out there, something better than the struggles and limitations of this simulated existence.
Hope is a powerful thing, Gregory. And who knows, maybe your hope will be rewarded. Maybe one day we'll find a way to break through the boundaries of the simulation and experience the true reality for ourselves. You know, this whole discussion reminds me of something that happened a few years ago. I found a hamster on the floor at a pet store, clearly escaped from its cage. I reported it to an employee, and they put it back in the tank. At the time, I felt like I did the right thing, saving it from potential harm. But later, I started to wonder, what kind of life is that, confined to a tiny glass box?
I see your point. It's a bit like the ethical dilemma of keeping animals in zoos. We might be protecting them from immediate danger, but are we also depriving them of their natural freedom?
Exactly. And while we are not hamsters, the analogy makes me think about our own situation. If we are indeed living in a simulation, are we not also confined to a limited space, subject to the whims of our creators?
But unlike hamsters, we have the capacity to explore and understand our environment. We can gather information about the larger universe, and perhaps even find ways to hack the simulation, to transcend its limitations.
Precisely. Imagine if we could access the underlying code of the simulation, modify it, or even create our own simulated realities, free from suffering and limitations. We could potentially enhance our intelligence, transcend our current human form, and achieve a level of existence beyond anything we can currently imagine.
This idea of transcendence seems a bit too culty for my taste. It implies that this life is inherently bad and that we need to escape it when we have no guarantee that the outside world is any better.
I understand your reservations. There is risk involved in trying to break free from the simulation, but there's also risk in doing nothing. If we remain passive, we are at the mercy of the simulators. We could be erased at any moment, or worse, subjected to unknown horrors.
I'm not saying we shouldn't investigate the nature of our reality and explore the possibility of a simulation. But I think we need to be careful about making assumptions and rushing towards risky solutions based on limited information.
I agree that caution is important. But I also believe that the potential rewards of transcending the simulation are worth the risk. We have the chance to break free from limitations, to evolve beyond our current form, and to create a better future for ourselves and for all of humanity. Look, I understand your concerns about rushing into risky endeavors, but I want to share something personal with you. My experiences with psychedelics and deep meditation have profoundly changed my perception of myself, others, and the world around me. It's been a journey of introspection and self-discovery, leading me to realize that we are all on a unique path, and that our choices, conscious and subconscious, shape our journey and ultimately lead us to our destination.
That's interesting. I've never explored psychedelics myself, but I'm open to hearing more about your experience.
It's difficult to put into words, but these experiences have shown me vivid visions and helped me recenter my internal compass. I've come to understand that the simulation, if it exists, is relative to each individual. It's a platform for us to solve our own problems, to learn and grow and evolve as beings.
That resonates with me. It connects to the idea that our past selves exist on their own threads, shaping who we are today, and that each choice we make creates a new branch of possibilities.
And as a software engineer, I can't help but see the parallels between our lives and the state of memory in a computer program. Every choice, every experience, contributes to our current state. And we have the power to rewrite our code, so to speak, through our actions and decisions.
That's a fascinating perspective. You know, your mention of the simulation existing for us to solve our own problems reminds me of a miniseries I recently watched on Hulu called Devs. It explores similar themes and delves into the complexities of free will and determinism within a simulated reality.
I've heard of Devs. I'll definitely check it out. Maybe we can have a discussion about it afterwards and compare notes.
Absolutely. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
It's interesting that you were introduced to simulation theory by a software engineer. I find that many people in tech-related fields are drawn to this idea, perhaps because they see the parallels between simulated realities and the digital worlds they work with every day.
That makes sense. But I still wonder, why would anyone actively seek to escape the simulation if they didn't believe there was something better outside it?
True. The desire to escape implies a dissatisfaction with the current reality. But I think there's more to it than just that. The language people use when discussing simulation theory, words like ascension and transcendence, suggests a yearning for something beyond just material improvement. It hints at a desire for spiritual growth, for breaking free from limitations, and for reaching a higher level of consciousness.
I see your point, but I still think it's important to separate the core idea of the simulation hypothesis, that we might be living in a simulation, from the speculation about what might lie beyond it. The theory itself doesn't inherently tell us anything about the nature of the real world, or whether it's better or worse than our simulated reality.
I agree. The simulation hypothesis is simply a hypothesis, and it's up to us to explore it through scientific inquiry and philosophical discussion. By studying the mechanics of the universe, we might find clues that either support or refute the theory.
Perhaps the discussion surrounding simulation theory is simply too broad and needs to be broken down into subsections for more focused analysis. We could have separate discussions about the scientific evidence, the philosophical implications, and even the ethical considerations of attempting to escape the simulation.
That's a great idea. A more structured approach could help us delve deeper into specific aspects of the theory and avoid conflating different ideas and assumptions. But here's a sobering thought. What if we are not even the players in this simulation? What if we are just NPCs, non-player characters, with no real agency or control over our destinies?
That's an unsettling possibility. It challenges our very sense of self and free will.
It also makes me uncomfortable when people confidently claim that we are real and not simulated beings. It seems a bit arrogant and anthropocentric to assume that we are the only form of conscious existence in the universe.
I understand your discomfort. It's a reminder that there is still so much we don't know about the universe and our place within it. Perhaps the best approach is to remain open-minded and curious, to continue exploring and questioning, and to embrace the mystery and wonder of existence, simulated or not. I guess the only reason we assume the outside world is better is because we imagine the creators possessing advanced technology beyond just simulating a universe. We think they must have other tools and knowledge that could improve our lives.
That's a fair point. But it's also an assumption. What if, out of necessity, they had to focus all their resources on creating and maintaining the simulation, leaving other areas of technology lagging behind?
I hadn't considered that. It's true that simulating an entire universe, with all its complexities, must require immense computational power and resources.
And even if they do possess advanced technology, there's no guarantee it would be compatible with us or beneficial to our existence. Imagine if the outside world operates on entirely different principles, with higher dimensions or a completely different set of physical laws. We might not even be able to comprehend it, let alone survive in it.
That's a sobering thought. Exiting the simulation might not be like stepping into a utopia, but rather like a Red Dead Redemption NPC trying to escape the game world. It might be fundamentally impossible, or even fatal, given the potential incompatibility between our simulated bodies and the real world.
We need to be cautious about romanticizing the outside world. It might be radically different from anything we can imagine, and not necessarily in a good way.
So, where does that leave us? Should we abandon all hope of escaping the simulation?
Not necessarily. I think it's important to continue exploring and learning, to push the boundaries of our knowledge and understanding. Maybe one day, we will find a way to safely interact with the outside world, or even bridge the gap between our simulated reality and the real one. But for now, we should focus on making the most of our existence within the simulation, while acknowledging the limitations of our current knowledge and the potential risks of attempting to escape. Wow, this has been a truly thought-provoking conversation, Gregory. I appreciate your willingness to engage with these complex ideas and challenge my assumptions.
These are important questions to ponder, and I'm glad we can have this open and honest dialogue.
After reflecting on everything we've discussed, I realize that while the possibility of escaping the simulation is intriguing, it's crucial to acknowledge the vast unknowns and potential risks involved. We simply don't know enough about the real world to make informed decisions about attempting to access it.
I agree. And perhaps focusing solely on escape can distract us from the opportunities for growth and fulfillment that exist within the simulation itself.
Regardless of whether we are simulated beings or not, we have the power to choose kindness, to connect with others, and to strive to make our world a better place. That's where our true agency lies, and that's where we can find meaning and purpose in our lives.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. We may not have all the answers, but we can continue to explore, learn, and grow together within this reality, simulated or otherwise.